We've already learned the basics of building React components yesterday. Let's now take a closer look at the components. In React, components are the building blocks of a user interface, and they can be categorized into two main types: functional components and class components. Functional components are also known as stateless components. They are simple JavaScript functions that return JSX, JavaScript XML, to describe what should be rendered on the screen. They look something like this. On the other hand, class components, also known as stateful components. They are JavaScript classes that extend the React component class. Class components can maintain their own state using the state object, and they have a variety of lifecycle methods for handling component events. Example of a class component is as shown on your screen. To put this all into practice, let's start by writing this code. To start with, let's start with writing your first functional component. Use the documentation provided for referencing the code. We will use the same project as created yesterday. We'll add welcome.js to the source folder. We call this as welcome component. It is a functional component that takes a name prop and renders a greeting. It receives data from a parent component and uses it to display the name in an h1 element. Once created, we will use it in the app.js, like we did yesterday. The difference is that we have a property here which we need to pass on called as name. Now let's run it to check. It works. Moving on, now let's create a class component. To start with, let's create a file, call it counter.js within the source folder. Let's use the code shared in documentation. In this code we declare a class component, name it as counter. It has its own state, we call it count, and provides a method called as increment that job is to update that state. It renders the current count and a button to increment it. Now let's run this code to check. Great, it works. So that's it for today. Best you practice this for today and keep learning at Interns.School.